the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. We're here live at the 10th Annual Silver Summit in beautiful Spokane, Washington, in the Davenport Hotel. I've got Jeff Clark of CaseyResearch.com, who publishes Big Gold, and he just gave a great talk on silver and why it's going up. Hey, Jeff, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Kerry. Great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, too, and you made a very bullish argument for silver. How likely do you think it really is, if you had to rate it from 1 to 100, how likely is it that silver really takes off?
Well, in my talk, I was talking about the exception to the rule, and that exception would be some kind of mania, where there's a D-day, if you will, for silver demand, where there's a crunch, where supply doesn't meet demand. And I gave some reasonable scenarios, and I gave some extreme scenarios. If 10% of the global population wanted to buy 100 ounces of silver during a mania, and admittedly that's a small percentage and that's a small amount of silver, but if just that amount alone would be 72 times greater than all of supply in 2011. It's that kind of extreme scenario that I think could be ahead for us, especially if we get some kind of mania where the public is rushing in to buy metal. And the ramifications of that are significant. Prices are going to go higher. Premiums are going to go a lot higher. They doubled in late 2008, early 2009. It's going to be difficult to get your hands on bullion. In other words, supply is going to be tight. But it also means some positive things. The producers are going to be extremely profitable. Their stock prices are going to climb. They're going to pay more dividends. Even though costs will be rising, the silver price will be rising faster. So it'll be good for the producers. So how likely is all that to happen? Well, I don't know how likely any particular scenario is. For me, all I know is that I'm convinced, at the very core of my being, that gold and silver prices are not only going higher, but are going a lot higher.
Right. So the question is, what triggers a mania? Now, we had tulip mania going back to the Dutch times, and that was like mass greed. But we also have manias that get triggered by mass fear events, where people believe that the economic world is coming to an end and that this is a form of insurance. Which one is going to do it here?
Well, it depends on what takes place in the economy. It could be a fear mania, it could be a greed mania, or it could be both. There could be both factors going on at the same time. For me, what I think it's going to be is inflation. And the reason I say that is because nobody's talking about it. It's probably going to catch a lot of people off guard. And the amount of money that we're printing is going to have consequences. And those consequences are inflationary, not deflationary. And I think inflation does win over deflation. The reason is because in the contest between inflation and deflation, inflation always gets another turn until it wins. And that's why I think it's going to be an inflationary response to all of this, regardless of what's going on in the economy, which means the value of our dollars is going to decline, which means gold and silver prices are going to go higher.
Yeah, and talking about inflation, since the Chinese were ingenious enough to create paper money, we have had inflation punctuated by bouts of hyperinflation, punctuated by bouts of backbreaking deflation. And yet the Federal Reserve, their biggest fear is, goodness, God forbid, that the dollar should become worth more rather than worth less.
That's correct. They say they want a strong dollar, but their actions say otherwise. So I don't really care what they say. In fact, you might want to look at and do the opposite of what they say. It's what they do that's important. They clearly don't want a strong dollar. Gold and silver prices have to go higher because everything they're doing is inflationary. It's diluted to the existing shareholders of dollars, and that's me and you because we use dollars every day.
Right. So what's the best way for Joe Sixpack, the average guy, for you to own silver in particular and gold?
First of all, I would buy physical right now as opposed to an ETF. It's not that I would avoid an ETF altogether, it's that just that in our current environment, I think it's increasingly important that you get your hands on the actual metal. So first of all, I would buy physical bullion. I would just accumulate on a regular basis. If you're doing that, you don't have to worry about the price. I love Silver Saver. I'm signed up. I buy a little bit of silver every Tuesday from them because Tuesday is the weakest day of the week for silver prices. You can go to a dealer on a regular basis, but I would just focus on accumulating physical bullion on a regular basis until you have enough to offset what could be potentially a very ugly situation ahead.
Yeah, and we've seen many times throughout history that people that accumulate the precious metals are able to weather these storms, as in Weimar Germany, far better than the average person who never sees it coming.
That's right. Not a lot of people know this, but in Weimar Germany, the gold price rose 1.4 times faster than the inflationary rate. That's amazing. 1.4 times faster than hyperinflation. In other words, if you use the proceeds of selling some gold and silver in Weimar Germany, your standard of living had zero impact. That's astounding. That's amazing to me that you can actually do that. And we think the same thing is going to happen here. No matter how high inflation goes, whether it's hyperinflation or not, it doesn't matter. We're going to get high inflation. No matter how high it goes, though, you're going to be able to have zero impact on your standard of living by selling a little bit of gold and silver during that time. You can pay $4 for a gallon of gas when gas is selling for $10 by buying silver right now. And when it hits $10 and you need a gallon of gas, sell that silver and you'll get the proceeds and be able to buy it as if it was still selling for $4 a gallon.
Yeah, and if you look at people who've researched the prior credit busts, of which I guess there's been 6 major ones in the past 300 or 400 years, Bob Hoy, the real purchasing power of gold and silver, effectively what you're saying, increases. Therefore, you can dig into your cash and not spend it all and effectively maintain your standard of living by having a relatively small percentage of your total assets in metals.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I recommend. I think the day will come where you actually will want to sell some of your gold and silver during high inflation to offset the rapid increase in prices for gas, food, etc. I think that's what we'll all want to do. To get there, I think you really need to look at having 10% of your investable assets in physical bullion. That, to me, would be a minimum. I wouldn't go all in on gold and silver, but you definitely need to have at least 10% of your assets in gold and silver.
Sure, it makes a lot of sense. So just tell us quickly, Big Gold, your main publication?
Big Gold's the main publication. It's very inexpensive. It's only $79. I keep telling corporate they need to raise the price, but they won't do that. But we cover producers only for the stocks, and we have our best buys in there. And we also have a Best Buy coming up in November, a stock that we think should be on the Best Buy list. If one thing in particular happens, that'll be exciting. We also have a bullion special on a fractional gold coin, which could be very practical for people to have at some point in the future. It's at a discounted price that you can't find in the market. You can get it all through Big Gold.
Well, makes a lot of sense, and you can find Big Gold at caseyresearch.com. Make sure you go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com to hear this interview again, as well as numerous others and extensive coverage of the Silver Summit. Jeff, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks, Kerry. Let's do it again.
Sure.